everyone. Today we have our another new episode and we will discuss on climate change and geoengineering. We have our world famous speaker, Mr. Rob and Mr. Daniel. First, I would like to give chance Mr. Daniel.
Good morning, Sharif and Rob. Great to have a good, juicy topic to pontificate on and and talk about. It's a very important topic because the big headline making news in the last day or so was this past June was the hottest one on record in the time that measurements were being taken, I think with thermometers about 3 meters above the ground, using standard mercury style thermometers. I think we've been doing such measurements since about 1840. So they're warning us, hey, expect more, more record-breaking months. Now, there's still a huge amount of what I think is kind of deceptive climate denial, climate disruption denial. Really, it's we should be talking about biosphere disruption because the climate system is just one of many interconnected systems on what we are on, which is a spaceship Earth. It's a closed life support system, which we have not been able to duplicate, even though many people have tried to create a closed life support system. I think it's been done on small scale with like brine shrimp and algae and seagrass plants in a sealed glass bottle. Some of those sealed systems have been going for, I think, like 40, 50 years. But we can't take the biosphere and the closed cycle life support of the Earth for granted. We are heavily disrupting it. And it seems no matter how much we realize we're disrupting it and we say, yeah, we got to stop the disruptions, we can't seem to get together with the policy pronouncements and requirements that will make us less disruptive to this only closed cycle life support system that we know of in the entire universe. So that's a pretty big responsibility. We're going to need more shows like this to take that responsibility seriously. So those would be some of my opening remarks on the topic, and thanks again for the invite.
Thank you. Now I request Mr. Rob.
So geoengineering, it's kind of a fascinating subject. As Daniel pointed out, we are in a contained environment, and the geoengineering is currently focused on undoing the damage that we're currently doing as a species. And the correct path, of course, would be to stop doing the damage in the first place. But we are currently incapable of that. So the hope, at least the large hope around geoengineering, is that we can create some kind of counter technology that will undo, mostly focus on global warming, but undo at least right now, undo the damage. So there are certainly geoengineering projects focused on different kinds of pollution as well. But looking at global warming, one of the issues with geoengineering is collateral damage, or unanticipated consequences. So you change one thing, you've got to do it on a massive scale. And the issue is if you change something on a massive scale in a closed system, what is the collateral damage that's going to occur? So for instance, one of the ways to deal with global warming would be to reduce the sunlight that's hitting the planet, put some type of material either in the stratosphere or in space that would block a percentage of the sunlight from hitting the Earth, and that certainly would lower the Earth's temperature. But now you're doing something on a massive scale, and we do not have a good simulation model of the planet, and so by cutting back on that energy coming to the planet, what else might occur? Could we do damage to the atmosphere? Could we wipe out an unknown species that we need at a microscopic level that could have unintended consequences that could also put the race at risk? The issue with geoengineering to fix a problem of this scale is the fact we can't simulate it. And so if we were to try it, we would discover real time whether it worked or not, whether it did more good or did more damage. And there lies the risk. We are building a large scale simulation in Earth 2. And the hope is once it matures, and it's going to take several decades to get Earth 2 up and running and functioning. But remember, with Earth 2 as a simulation, it can only simulate what we know about. So once we create Earth 2, it will have everything in it we know about the planet. But we don't know everything about the planet, and we probably won't know anything about the planet in a couple decades. And we will make assumptions when we create Earth 2, when we have made assumptions when we created Earth 2 about the knowledge that we don't have. But whenever you're running a simulation, you're having the simulation predict the outcome of a large-scale experiment. The more that is being estimated, the more data that you're deriving as opposed to discovering, the higher the risk is you're going to get it wrong. And that's a real danger when you're talking about planet-wide engineering, because if you get it wrong, it's not like we can just pack up our bags and go to Mars. I saw that Musk has gone on record saying that the way he wants to geoengineer Mars is drop a bunch of atomic bombs on the planet, freeing up the carbon and allowing Mars to create an atmosphere and environment. Though it hasn't been really clear what he's going to do with regard to nuclear contamination, radiation contamination, and nuclear fallout. You could create clearly by doing this, you could create an atmosphere. The problem is you probably couldn't live in it when you're done. And there lies often the conundrum with geoengineering is to make sure that you don't make things worse by trying to fix an underlying problem. As I said, the best path to trying to address a problem you're creating is to stop creating the problem. If you're overweight because of overeating, yes, you can go in and have surgery, but there will be collateral damage associated with that. The surgery has downsides, and you'll have to experience those downsides. Where if the overweight situation is being caused by overeating, then the better path is probably to stop overeating. Now, obviously, if there are other issues at play that you have to have corrected, then medical intervention needs to be introduced. But the thing is with regard to anything that you're causing, the best path is to stop causing it. Because that has the least chance of having adverse consequential damages. So my opening is geoengineering is fascinating. I don't have a lot of hope that it's going to be able to solve global problems, largely because we don't have a model to test it against yet. And if we decide to test it live, the potential for catastrophic problems is extremely high. I remember with the Hadron Collider, and with the nuclear bomb, there was a concern that when we created the nuclear bomb that it would destroy the planet, and there was a decision made that we would use it anyway because ending the war was a higher priority. I struggle with that logic because again we can't move off the planet, but we went ahead and did it, and the planet survived. But it was largely luck because there was a significant amount of theoretical research that suggested that once the nuclear explosion, at the time, once a nuclear event started, it wasn't going to stop until it consumed the matter on the planet, maybe not even then. Now we've advanced and we know that's not going to happen, but mostly we know that's not going to happen because it didn't happen yet. With the Hadron Collider, what was fascinating is that there was also a chance that it was going to create a black hole. The black hole was going to swallow the planet. They did the math. And they discovered that chance was extremely remote. Then they redid the math years after the Hadron Collider, and they discovered they were 2 decimal points off in the wrong direction. Now, it's still a slight chance, but 2 decimal points off in the wrong direction is not the kind of news you want to hear post-experiment. You want to discover those kinds of risks before you experiment, so you make an informed decision. And there lies the difficulty with large-scale geoengineering is we have no way to make a truly informed decision because we can't simulate the planet in its detail. So small scale geoengineering makes a lot of sense. You can control a small scale effort. You want to deal with a drought event, and you want to come up with either a containment or other ways to create water and move water in large scale across the continent. Probably not a lot of adverse impact. But there's going to be some. You start moving large bodies of water, you're going to change the weather in the region, just as we found when we put up cities and take out forests. We change the weather patterns, and even though it doesn't seem like it's all that big, it does have an impact, and an impact that we didn't consider when we built the city. So the positive impact of geoengineering is perhaps better understanding the collateral damage of what we're doing anyway. And then as we build cities, coming up with ways to mitigate their impact as we put them up. That would probably be the best use of geoengineering as we currently understand it. Taking a small scale project that's going to do harm and then requiring that it be geoengineered, in other words, that the project be engineered to make sure it doesn't cause problems and doesn't increase the issues with regard to global climate change. So those are my opening comments. I just struggle with geoengineering at a global scale simply because we can't simulate it, and testing it at global scales is extremely dangerous. Ali, I think you're up.
Okay, I did a little bit of research actually, and geoengineering is a deliberate large-scale intervention to affect the Earth's natural systems, which already scares me anyway, because I think that kind of nature, so I think if we worked with the balance of nature and the interconnectedness of it all, I think we'd all be a lot happier and safer. And I think the thing is that as the natural climate on the Earth obviously differs depending on where you are. So, but I think the things that kind of, afforestation, so it's kind of like reforesting things. So it's immediately, if you have trees in a hot place like California, that immediately brings the temperature down. So I think the thing is that trees are vital. And even in England at the moment, we had the hottest June on record. So I think the thing is that kind of finding shade and kind of relief from the sun's rays, just kind of trees, and that's nature's way of keeping things kind of cooler. And so I think the thing is I think the best thing to do is kind of work so that we're doing stuff that doesn't threaten or sway what's happening already. And I think that for me, the corporate and the petrochemical industries are massively responsible. And I think the problem is that we're all kind of interlinked with the way things are. So it's really hard to change. And what happened with us actually in the last few months is we had a diesel car, and we went to have it checked over because there was a problem with it. And we suddenly discovered that we were going to face like a $4,000 bill. So our best solution actually was to get an electric car. So I think the thing is, and interestingly, the electric cars that we use here are all actually where we charge, it's all generated electricity from either solar or wind power. So I think the thing is that it's quite interesting that that's the way it's going. But essentially, if you look at the logistics of having an electric car in the UK, there's only certain rapid charging stations that you can use. And locally, there's 2 that we can go to. But if 2 people are there already, so I went to charge locally, and it took me 3 hours to get to access that. And the thing is, I don't know what the percentage of electric cars are on the road. But kind of at the moment, the infrastructure isn't there. And the thing is that we kind of travel relatively locally. So we probably go maybe 10 miles one way and back, and 10 miles back. And I think the thing is, if you were going long distances and you didn't have the reassurance that there was somewhere to charge on route, it's quite disconcerting to have an electric car that you can effectively just not be able to power. So I think the thing is, but in my research, I did actually, there's lots of things that they were talking about which sound really scary. So the space reflectors, so we completely block the sunlight or block a proportion of it or reflect it out to space. And I just think we're gonna be in the same position as we were with genetically modified food, to be honest. So I think the thing is that I think we need to hold the big industries to account and make them change. That there's the petrochemical industry made huge billions and billions of pounds of profit. And I think the thing is that there was a massive pressure over here to do a windfall tax on those to bring more income into the country in the UK, and the government wouldn't do it. So I think the thing is that we still need to hold them to account and try and change the kind of the equilibrium of things so that those that are polluting the planet have to, compensate everyone else for, and gradually we need to look at other ways of kind of addressing the balance, really. But definitely since lockdown, I'm really conscious that we stay much more local and we don't travel the same distances. So I think the thing is that lockdowns have affected the way that, and we tend to buy locally and buy local produce. And so I think it's made us a little bit more insular in the way that we do things. So that's my first comments. Yeah, that's my first thoughts. That's amazing.
Thank you. Madam Viva, what you want to discuss about geoengineering? You are expert on that particular area.
Yeah, I have a little bit of knowledge about it. I've been watching the whole debate since about 1998. So the first thing I would like to say is that Rob's got it spot on right, that it's very dangerous. And however, it has been modeled. So there have been at Harvard University some significant modeling studies of it. And the results that they've reported from their modeling on the solar geoengineering are that they can, if they step it up quite heavily, they could actually cool the planet down to a point where it returns glaciation. But in order to do that, they would basically be blocking the sun out almost fully. So that's the trade-off we would have to make if we really wanted to cool the planet down. And also, Ali mentioned the trees. So obviously we should all try to cut back on our emissions. That's the job number one for everyone, which means shelter and work in place. Ration your recreational carbon emissions so that you're not enjoying life too much while other people are still starving and dying. And then planting trees, of course, as Ali mentioned, is really important. They do provide an evaporative cooling service to the atmosphere. They also give off terpenes that help cloud formation get triggered above them. So the shading work is helped greatly by that. It's also true of the algae in the ocean as well, too. So as some of the panelists know, my company is working on climate repair with a net nature-based system. We are basically now working to defend the oxidative capacity of the atmosphere, which is the Earth's natural ability to cleanse itself with the oxygen-based cleansers that we have up there. And if geoengineering does go forward, we're proposing that they need to realize that hydroxyl dispersal will make that geoengineering technique much safer because it will restore the oxidative capacity to us lower down, which we badly need because we have such high record pollution levels that are damaging the atmosphere's ability to cleanse itself normally, and it cannot no longer keep up. So if they add this particular perturbation to the atmosphere, it's going to make things significantly worse. We already see quite a lot of spraying happening with the weather modification programs overhead. It is a part of that program. And there are over 50 of those programs putting toxic chemicals up in the atmosphere already. All of the pollution is basically addressed by the hydroxyl radical in one way or another, by a reductive chemistry and oxidative chemistry, or it just attaches to a particle and makes it heavier and weighs it down so it comes out of the sky and lands on the ground. It is a critical cleansing system that we have to protect. We need to be aware of it, and we need to be prepared for it to take a big hit if the geoengineering goes forward, and plan some kind of contingency that's effective, like what we propose, to take care of that oxidative capacity for everyone. So that's my opening remark.
Thank you, Mr. Markley. What you want to share about climate change and geoengineering?
Well, I mean, I think that Ali and Vivi have covered a lot of what is going on, which is that we've got to do a better job of maintaining the climate that we have and do a better job of making sure that we are not doing things to harm the environment. I am actually a big fan and have been ever since my parents, particularly my dad, got me into it in the naturalist sense, because a lot of things that are even things that we can do on a regular basis are right there at our disposal. I know that they oftentimes would have me thinking about the things that we can eat that are actually right there in our environment that we oftentimes don't think about. I'm here in the South, and I remember hearing about something called a poke salad, and folks might not know what that is, but that is something that grows out in the wild and that can actually be edible and all along those lines. So that is something that folks can think about. And I was actually recently at a festival that celebrates Mother Earth and Mother Nature called the Eno Festival, that is held every year because it is at a state park. And there were a number of people out there who were talking about everything from solar to environmental kind of aspects to even having some folks that were in the space of learning about the reptiles and the other animals that can sometimes even help in our own study and connection with wildlife and all in that space. I remember that as a youngster, my dad was actually building geodesic houses, and I think he built one. And a lot of times we don't think about that, which can be something that folks can do as well. And I think that was in Guilford County, if I remember correctly, which is outside of Greensboro area and all along those lines. So there are things that we can do in the environment. I also remember him as a very young man, even younger than I am now. I think one say he was in his 40s or 50s. He would sometimes go out, because he's an artist as well, even to this day, and he would see things that are in that space and convert them into practical uses. So like you might find a piece of wood and a cement block. Some people will be like, well, what can you do with a piece of wood and a cement block? Well, it makes a very good desk. And even Rob can relate to that. You can find some of the items in there, and then you can make something that is practical out of things that some people may consider trash, and all along those lines. So that's just on my immediate thoughts on this topic, is that we need to be aligned with Mother Nature and find ways that we can work together to make these kind of connections on a regular basis. And sometimes they can be very simple solutions, just as a couple that I named, whether that is finding foods that are edible in the wild, or whether that is finding practical uses for things that might be considered trash by other folks, and all along those lines. So that's just some immediate thoughts. I may have others as we continue the conversation.
Thank you. Mr. Saleh, what you want to discuss about climate change?
Nice to meet you, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Saleh Gidjan. I'm from Algeria. So I'm the director of startup of fabrication of industrial machine, CNC machine, 3D printer. So my English language is not very good, but with your experience, I think we can communicate. So we have a startup in Algeria country. We have startup of manufacturing of 3D printer, CNC machine, industrial machine tools, milling machine. So my experience is 3 years in this job. So I can show you something for my company if you accept. So I have this videos of my company. If you can, so it's my first time I assist for this. Can ايش اقدر partager?
I think he wants you to let him share screen, Dr. Sharif. He's
I
got
think
a
that's it.
video.
I still do that. I can.
Do you see where it says present?
No.
If you click on that, if you're trying to share a
Voilà.
video.
It is a. No. Oh, I can
Sounds
do
like
that.
you've got a makerspace going
Yes,
there.
this is my video. So you see that? Oh,
There we go.
yes. Voilà.
Yeah, click on the one you want to
You
play.
show in this. You look at that. So this is my little video of my company.
Double click on it.
Yeah, double
Yeah.
clicked. I think should play it.
Click the video. Right, it should play it.
Yes, you look at that. This video is.
It's not playing
You-
yet. You probably need to double click on the one you want to play.
Manual playing. Oh,
Yeah, it's not playing on this side.
okay. Okay.
Double click on it.
Double click in this.
Yeah.
I can. Sorry, I'm very sorry for this.
Well, it is a learning process for everybody. The wonders of technology, isn't that right,
Yes, in my
Rubbish?
first.
Yeah, no problem, no problem. I
This.
think you can.
And these videos are on geoengineering, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
If you look at that, this video is. وش أقول لك؟
Well, it sounds like you've got a makerspace going on, which the makerspace movement is going to be really good for doing solutions.
Why I can show you this video if you can't speak
Okay, okay, no
English.
problem. We can share with our speakers and our audience. If you share with me,
Yes.
yeah, we can share in the future. Mr. Rob, I think our friend is new in this StreamYard, so I'm sorry about that. So
Not a problem.
as he's discussed, he's discussed about geoengineering from Algeria. So how geoengineering can be helpful for this climate change, and what type of impact or what type of startup we can develop for climate change.
Well, so geoengineering is something that happens. Typically, we're talking about geoengineering on a global scale, and I'm at this particular point, other than theory, we're talking about a scale that even governments would struggle with accomplishing. And recognize when we're talking about geoengineering on a global scale, you would need the support of multiple governments to make it work. If you put something up and for whatever reason it causes harm to China or Russia or the United States uniquely, you might have created a world war event. So you've got to be really careful about what it is you're doing. Now you can do theoretical research, but much of that's being done in colleges and universities and funded by grants. Then you'd be looking at technologies that might spin out of that research that you could use on a localized level. But at scale, other than doing research and searching for grants, and certainly small companies can also get grants to do research, but mostly we're talking about research here. And then responding to Viva's comment on the research that's been done on geoengineering, what I was talking about is the fact we don't have a world model yet, and so the simulations that they're currently doing are not being done against a world model because it doesn't exist. The world model, the Earth 2 model, is still under construction and isn't expected to be done before the end of the decade. And even by then, it won't be complete because, as I said, we don't know everything, and we're going to be making assumptions underneath that model. But that's the model we're going to need to use if we talk about things that affect the planet or are directly related to large-scale geoengineering projects. Now, there are 3 large-scale projects that are currently worth watching. One is the carbon sinking fans in Switzerland, out of a company called Climeworks, and these are pulling about 900 tons of carbon out of the air per year at a cost of about $600 per ton. Issue with the technology or issue with this effort is it's too expensive. It is carbon capture. It is directly focused on removing harm that people are doing. So the collateral damage should be relatively small. We're undoing the harm we're doing. We're not trying to do something else like block the sun. So the underlying concept in terms of risk reward seems to be good depending how your tolerance for cost is. But at $600 a ton, it's currently estimated to be too expensive to scale. But what we're really good at in technology is being able to reduce costs. So we've proven, Switzerland has proven it's viable. Now, can we make it cost effective? And so it does have a path to success. It's probably the most interesting, primarily because it seems to have the least collateral damage. Then we've got solar geoengineering. That's from a team out of Harvard that's been working on this since 2018, and it's been to a large extent funded by Bill Gates. He was the largest donor, at least for the experiment. They sent a balloon up 20 kilometers above the Arizona desert, released a calcium carbonate, relatively safe material, to block the sun, and once again it did prove that it was effective. But now we're not addressing the problem. We're addressing the symptom of the problem, and here collateral damage could be very high. So we've got to make sure that if we do this, we can undo it relatively quickly. Otherwise, we could have a serious number of problems. We can look at what a simulation might have done, though, because in 1815, a volcanic eruption resulted in the year without summer. Collateral damages were crop shortages, disease outbreaks, and other things related to the extended cold, but things we likely could tolerate. So in a way, we've already had an experiment at scale provided by Mother Nature in that 1815 volcanic explosion. And then the final one that's at scale is feeding iron to phytoplankton. The phytoplankton consume carbon dioxide, and they consume iron. And so if you put a large amount of iron oxide into the ocean, it would cause the phytoplankton to grow to a much larger extent and start yanking carbon dioxide out of the air. Now, why is this riskier than the first one I spoke about? Well, largely because you're affecting the ocean, and it doesn't appear that this would be reversible. And so the danger would be you could badly damage the ocean ecosystem, though you could argue we're doing that already. And they've created at least the first test, which wasn't really authorized by any government. It was a U.S. businessman, Ross George, created a 10,000 square mile artificial plankton bloom, and showed that it did in fact address the carbon dioxide problem, and increase the salmon population in the region. However, scientists currently aren't convinced that that this is an effective way to trap carbon, but it's one of the largest 10,000 miles, experiments that happened. And again, no government approval, no approval by the UN. Just a guy with a lot of money decided, hey, well, let's do an experiment real time. And that's probably one of the big dangers of large scale geoengineering. As somebody with a lot of money that has a theory that wants to test the theory at scale and then does a significant amount of damage as a result. We just showcased that another relatively rich guy and a submersible who felt that you didn't need to do safety testing, discovered that doing things fast and loose can be exceedingly dangerous. Well, in that case, we were talking about a handful of people died. When we're talking about geoengineering, that kind of experimentation, we could be talking about the death of the population, if not the death of the species. And so one of the big dangers here, I think that this highlights, is there are people out there that are trying to do this on their own without government approval, without UN approval. And if they get this wrong, particularly the scale we're talking about, 10,000 miles, my heavens, the amount of damage that could be done could be irreversible. And it is, and at least currently we believe, this effort to drop iron in the ocean and cause massive plankton blooms would be irreversible. Once you did this, whatever good or damage that you did would not be something you could easily reverse. You'd need another large-scale geoengineering project to undo this particular geoengineering project. So my point is, with regard to testing and simulation, is when you're doing simulation, you need a fully populated model to do the simulation on. And we're building one, but we don't have it yet, and that makes doing anything other than large-scale carbon capture, where there isn't a lot of collateral risk, of doing it with the fans as Switzerland is doing it, as opposed to doing it in the ocean, as was done by that rich businessman, would be the better path. Even though it seems more expensive, sometimes it's worth the money to do things more safely than it is to do things fast and cheap, as that submersible looking at the Titanic, as the people in that submersible looking at the Titanic discovered to their dismay. That was a scary story. So that's where I am now, passing to Daniel.
Yeah, geoengineering. We've been doing a lot of unintentional geoengineering already since the Industrial Revolution, and no one has been penalized for that. So it's kind of ironic that people are trying to undo the results of unintentional geoengineering with intentional geoengineering are suddenly running up against a lot of regulatory barriers. But that's probably as it should be. We should become more scientific, more evidence-based in what we do. And I'm sorry to hear that the Earth 2 digital twin of Earth is not ready for prime time yet. I know there's another company called Earth2.io that's making a little marketplace of selling tiles of Earth. So I don't know if that's going to result in any good science. But I'm looking at a very interesting website called Geoengineeringmonitor.org. And there's some techniques on here that I have not even heard of. They basically fall into 4 categories. You've got solar radiation management, Earth radiation management, which can involve things like thinning the cirrus clouds so more heat can reflect back into the vacuum of space at night. There's carbon dioxide removal, which falls under the direct air capture. Then there's a category of weather modification, which they really don't talk about. But I'm a big fan of reduction tech and what Viva's doing, because she's addressing not just one gas in the air column, but the whole panoply of problematic gases that are present in the atmosphere with the hydroxyl generation. Could I, Viva, do you generally, does reduction tech usually get categorized as a direct air capture, or what category does your system fall under? It
Well,
sounds you need a new category, maybe.
yes, we do. We do need a new category. It's basically climate system repair, because it does multi-point system repair that hydroxyl is known to do already in nature, that's in the fossil and the chemical paleo records. That's what we base our proposal on, is all of that amazing chemistry.
Another source of amazing chemistry that doesn't get talked about is the healthy soil, biochar, the ability for microbes in the soil to do sequestration, just as a natural function of how soil usually interacts with the environment. So and that's something that anyone can do in their backyard, that you can produce biochar, which is basically just cellulose that's been pyrolyzed in the absence of air. It becomes kind of like an organic charcoal. And it's actually a very valuable product for gardeners. I think it sells for about $10 a gallon. And what it is a life raft for microbes. A ping pong ball sized piece of biochar has the surface area of a tennis court, if you want to try to visualize that. So, dead soil is not going to grow healthy food. It's not going to help our closed life support system here on Spaceship Earth. But healthy soil with living microbes will. There's kind of a cool citizen science test that started, I think, with the Soil Conservation Council of Canada. It's got the funny name Soil Your Undies, where you bury a pair of cotton underwear for 60 days and then you dig it up and you look at it, and based on how degraded it is, you can see what the microbial health factor of your soil is. So it's kind of a little bit of a humorous take on citizen science with the name, but it's really easy to do, and it would be worthwhile to compile a soil health survey database because I think we could really, just by rejuvenating the microbial health of the soil and making biochar, I think we could probably it'd be like a DIY geoengineering project that no one is going to come and shut you down from the UN for doing. But there's a lot of people here, so I'll let us move on to the next subject matter expert, which I'm glad to be.
I had a question of curiosity and everything, which is, are folks concerned because one of the things we're hearing about in the world and everything, and it's been definitely a topic of today and a topic of definitely the last week or so, but definitely today, is that we're in the middle of the summer, and apparently in the middle of summer we're talking about all this kind of ways that the earth can work in better and everything, but they're also saying that we are facing the hottest weather that we have ever seen. So is this stuff that will help us in that regards if we actually find ways to become more engaged in the environment and to protect the environment? Because I know a lot of people, and maybe Rob has got some thoughts about this, are concerned that the earth is getting hotter and hotter, and who knows how much longer we'll be able to stay on the earth. Because like I said, I just found out that I think it's the third day in a row that we have set the hottest temperatures worldwide and everything. So there's probably some concern about the nature of the world and where we are in the world. I know that a lot of people are going like, hey, the world will be around 1,000 years from now, 2,000 years from now, and if it's going to be climate change, don't be that concerned about it and everything. But as one that has no kids of my own but have those two nephews, I would like them to be maybe not necessarily dealing with 120 degree temperatures when they get to be my age in their say in their 60s, because I just hit 61 back on Saturday and everything, and I'd like them to definitely live that long, if not much longer, and don't want them facing like 120 degree temperatures every day. And that might be where we are heading in that direction. But for those of you that are more environmentally inclined, what are your thoughts? Will my nephews need to be prepared for a hotter world than actually exists now?
Well, the question I think I'm hearing is passive measures enough? And
Right.
No, because the bad chemistry we've put in the atmosphere is going to take decades and decades to come out. So we need to do active measures like Reduction Tech is proposing to actively undo this disruptive damage, not just passively. And happy birthday again, by the way.
Didn't know if the ladies had any thoughts about that, either Ali or Viva, and everything in that space, because I know that they are very environmentally conscious as well. So I didn't know if the ladies wanted to chime in also on the notion of my nephews facing a world of 120 degree temperatures. Maybe it's not that bad, but I'm just kind of exaggerating, but it is a possibility. And I think if I remember correctly, Ali has young ones as well, and I don't know about Viva's status, but definitely you can correct me if that is something you are concerned about.
Because I think in the UK, because we live in such a moderate climate, when we have warm weather and sunshine, it's kind of cool because we're not used to high temperatures. But I think within the next week, we're going to hit 35 degrees. So, and as I said before, June was the hottest June on record. So I think the thing is, and I've traveled extensively, so I've been around the world. I love California and I love dry heat, and I'm a bit of a sun worshipper, to be honest. But this generation of children generally aren't. So my son's just spent the last 10 days in Portugal, and he spent most of his time out of the sun. And when he came back, he had no suntan, you know. So it's either stayed in the water or kind of undercover. So I think that's, well, their generation, or my experience of my children, is that, you know, that they don't really like the sun and the heat. And I think we spent most of our time traveling abroad when we were younger with our parents. So we spent most summer holidays abroad as well. So I think, and I think the thing is, because we're in such a moderate climate, I don't think we really appreciate the extremity of weather that other places. And you know, so when I worked in California where there were forest fires, and I saw the extent of, you know, how acres and acres of forest were taken, you know, completely wiped away. And I also saw areas where, you know, they'd had an avalanche in the winter time, and all the trees had been mowed down. And I think the thing is that we don't have that kind of extreme weather conditions. So I think that it's in some ways, as in our experience, we don't really, apart from in the news, we don't see that extremity. But I know we've got family that live in Australia. Some of my closest friends live in the States, and I think it's only when it's like the forest fires that they've had north of New York. It wasn't till the environment was affected in New York itself that it hit the national news. And I think the thing is that people don't really understand what's going on until it's, you know, in their consciousness. And I think, and until the news kind of focuses on what's going on in real time and shows the, you know, the devastation. And I think particularly in third world countries, that, you know, that their live and survival, you know, as a day to day, you know. So, and I think the thing is that in the Western world, we're quite lucky in lots of ways because we take so much for granted. And, you know, so we never worry about where the next meal's coming from, unless, you know, that there's pockets of deprivation, and even in the UK. So, you know, I don't think there's ever been more food banks than there is now. And when I was growing up, no one would, you know, a food bank was kind of an unheard of thing. So I think the thing is that the cost of living's risen massively. And some people in the winter here have to choose whether they heat or eat because of the, you know, the cost implications. So I think the thing is, even though we live in a moderate climate, there's, you know, there's some disadvantages to that because it does get cold in the winter, but not extremely cold. You know, we don't have like 7 or 8 feet of snow, but it's sufficiently cold to, you know, for elderly people to freeze in their homes if they haven't got heating. So I think the thing is that nobody's, you know, everyone's affected, but I don't think we've seen the same kind of extreme weather conditions or, you know, the extremity of temperatures that other people do in other places in the world.
Okay, my turn.
Thank you.
I want to pick up where Daniel mentioned Climeworks. Also just mention I do not have children. I've been far too busy on other projects and stuff to do that. So I actually count myself quite fortunate to not have that worry at this point in time. But Climeworks at $600 a ton for carbon removal. I'd like to share a graphic that hopefully will work out here for us and show everybody that total removal. Can you see this?
Yeah.
This graphic in the black with the black background?
Oh, it's
No.
not come up.
Okay, hang on. Yeah. Just a sec.
I need to learn how to present on here too.
Yeah. Yeah. Window. Okay, here's a graphic. I had 2 ready to go. I'll do the second one first. This is a comparison between business and usual. Can you see it?
Yeah.
Business as usual. Can you see that?
Yeah.
No?
Yes.
Somebody.
I can hear it.
I just see the one with the earth
Yeah,
on it.
okay. So the other graphic is a graph that shows total removal of all the greenhouse gases compared to just removing CO2 by itself. And when we remove everything all at once, it's at least twice as fast and twice as effective as just a CO2 removal only. And that's done by completely independent scientific analysis from us. So I think it's really important for people to know that a complete removal has that ability. And the other aspect that compares head to head with something like a Climeworks removal is we only are going to charge at scale about $51 a ton. So we're highly affordable, very, very affordable. So very important for people to know that we can actually bring the cost down. And we have been identified by the United Nations Clean Development Mechanism as globally scalable as well too. So I just want to highlight some of the things that happens when a large scale dispersal of an oxidant like the ones we have in our atmosphere are done. And this is based on science in the fossil record. It starts with total greenhouse gas and air quality pollutant removal, improvement of biodiversity, increased mineral plant diversity, more rainfall, drought mitigation, calmed weather extremes, enhanced cloud and sky albedo, which is the reflectivity. It does the sky as well as the clouds. It increases crop protection 50% faster than just CO2 removal only. It's 50% faster at wildfire and ice loss reduction and trend reversal. And it's able to repair the ozone layer if necessary. And, you know, this could become necessary at some point in the future, unfortunately, because of the degradation from the wildfires. They do cause damage to the ozone layer, as well as any possible geoengineering that we're done or unintentionally doing. So I will just tell you that's very important information, and this is why we stand in a separate category from direct air capture. It's climate repair, it's climate system repair. And so we do have a little bit of an uphill battle in getting people to understand that the climate system needs repair rather than just carbon removal, just by itself. So very important to know that. Thanks, Sharif.
Thank you. Thank you. I think we have our new friend, Sigma. You want to add any point? Mr. Saleh?
Oh, Sharif, if you're interested, if you pull in
Yes,
on
I
my
know.
side that share screen, that is actually Sally's video. So if we wanted to see what Mr. Godjill is up to, I did find a way to do it, and I think it's in English and all. But if you pull up my screen, then I can hit play, and we can hear more about what he is doing. So let me hit play, and let's see what's going on.
So thank you for watching my videos. My videos is for manufacturing of industrial machine. We have many projects of manufacturing aircraft, turbine, or something. Smart shop. Sigma, where are you? Sigma.
Well, that was that video and everything. So let me get rid of the other stuff and all along those lines. So, Sally, I see that your interpreter said, and I know it's something that Dr. Sharif talks about a lot of times, is collaboration. And I see that your interpreter was saying that y'all believe in the power of collaboration and know that together we can achieve extraordinary results, and that you are inviting all of us to join your journey, contribute your expertise, and become a vital part of that success story. So definitely looks like you're wanting us to work hand in hand to revolutionize the world of 3D printing. And I also see that you said that you eagerly await our valuable insights and support and that you would like us to reach out and figure out some ways that we can work together. And I know that that's something that Dr. Sharif talks about on a regular basis, is being collaborative. And I saw that Reverend Daniel Tweet had actually asked you about the compressed earth block tool, and it seems like you've got one of those, but I don't believe in putting words in other folks' mouths and all in that space. But I just wanted to get some translation for those that were interested in your concept and everything. But Saleh, if you will share a little bit about what we watched and any thoughts that you want to share in that regards.
Yes, thank you so much for this, for your watching my videos. So I hope I can do many projects in aircraft, in turbine motor of aircraft, and 3D printer and CNC machine. So I think I will be with your experience. I can do the best in my project. So thank you so much for your watching, and thank you. So
Thank you. Thank you, everyone, for joining today's sessions. Thank you, Mr. Rob, Mr. Daniel, Madam Ali Rice, Madam Viva, Mr. Mark Lee, and Mr. Saleh for joining the World Talent Economy Forum. I request all of our audience, please share our content as much as possible. Climate change is a very challenging problem for emerging economy. So hopefully we need more of your collaboration and support to solve this complex problem. Thank you. Bye-bye and take care.
No problem.
Right.